Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
What a beautiful day outside this today. I tell you, this is a good one today. I apologize for having to delay this for a week. I can tell you that in my work career, I have never missed 3 days of work ever until last week. I could not get out of bed for 3 days. So I apologize for having to bump this back a week, but I have no choice. It's just one of those things. So I thought I made it through the whole winter without getting it, but I didn't, and it was pretty bad. So I may be getting a drink of water once in a while here too, because my voice isn't quite where it ought to be. But I am ready to do this today. Really excited about what's going on in our community and just to be able to share with you. Appreciate the turnout here today. You know, what this is all about is communicating and sharing information and giving an opportunity to ask questions in a nice public format. So this is my 10th State of the City address that I've been able to do as the mayor of the city of Terre Haute. And this is one of the better ones I've been able to talk about in the last few years anyway. So just very excited about that. So thanks again for being here today. And Christy, thanks for hosting us once again here at the library. Always want to start out with financial things. It seems to get the most buzz. It seems to get the most misinformation applied around the community. And so I think the key to start with is as we look a little bit of a 16 review here and move to 17, but to talk about a few things that are different as we progress from 15 to 16 as we end in 16. Noticeable improvement. Now, you know, that's in the eye of the beholder, obviously, from different people's perspectives. What's a bit disappointing for me is, you know, it's been challenging. There's no question about that. And each year our property tax caps continue to get us a little bit harder. You know, I've mentioned this for several years now. I'll continue to mention it, that the property tax are calculated again each year. And unfortunately for the city of Terre Haute, our number just keeps getting bigger every year. And so it's never really leveled off. We'll see about 17. There are a variety of factors that affect that. But noticeable improvement, there's a couple of different things. We added another fund from the previous year to our list of 82 different funds that we manage the city of Terre Haute with. And we eliminated a couple of negative balances from last year, from 15 to 16. We ended up with 9 negative balances out of the 82. So what's important here to keep in mind is a lot of times you'll hear people say, oh, the city is in a deficit, or you know, the city is broke, or whatever term you might want to use, and they're not being reflective of our entire budget. We have 82 different funds and have a variety of revenue sources that populate those different funds, and 73 of them ended 16 with positive balance. 9 of them have negative balance. And the reason for that is 4 of those are federal funds and federal grants that we receive. They're never going to be positive. They're either negative or they're zero because you've got the reimbursement from the federal government. And the feds aren't very good about paying us on time. We have to really fight that. But usually quarterly we get some type of reimbursement. So those 4 funds that are negative, we're always going to be negative as long as we continue to get those federal grants. We've got 2 other funds that are negative, our golf courses. I'll talk about a strategy there here in a little bit, but they're negative for many, many years of over expense versus revenues coming in. And then there's a couple of others that just kind of float based on revenue streams. And so from a perspective of comparing 15 to 16, how we ended the year, we made some significant progress here. We fixed 2 of those funds permanently that were negative for several years, and we're positive now, and we have 1 more to go in that category. So I'm very excited about that. Our general fund balance. So if you look back at the end of 15, over there in the parentheses, it was about $8.9 million coming into 16. At the end of 16, we finished at $8.1 million fund. This is the general fund. This is one of those 82 funds. And it's the biggest one when it comes to having a negative cash balance, primarily because of property tax caps. So when we look at the general fund balance, we finally hit the point last year where we had a balanced budget at 16, and we had actually more revenues than expenses that we were able to go against the deficit. The same thing will happen again this year, and I'll talk about that shortly. But we were able to go in the other direction, about $800,000 to reduce that deficit. So we won't be adding to the deficit anymore in the general fund until it's eliminated. There's a couple of different key things that will help us get there sooner, but we'll talk about that in a bit. Total cash balances At the end of 16, it was $35.9 million. So if you look at those 82 different funds that we had, at the end of the year, it was almost $36 million of cash on hand. At the end of 15, we had $24.4 million. So once again, we're trending in the right direction of having money available to us at the end of the year to begin the next year. A couple of those funds are leftover residual money from some bonds, but it's very small now as compared to what it has been in the past. There's been times where we've had $60, $70 million in there, where now we're down to just a few million left to be spent on particular projects. The rest of that are just cash balances that actually fund those 82 different funds. And then the budget for 17, as we said, we had a balanced budget of 16 for the general fund, and overall we take more revenue than what we have for expenses. But the city council passed the budget 9 to nothing last year for 2017, and so sometimes I'll get questions from people saying, you know, trying to understand what all this means. And I think what's really important is the council recognizes kind of that we've made some progress, but we're moving in that right direction. We had a balanced budget for 17, and that was the first 9-0 vote that I've had in 10 years as mayor. So that was a very comforting thing to know that the council was on board with our budgets for 2017. We implemented a trash fee last year. You know, that was a big deal. We talked about it for a couple of years. We didn't get what we asked for, but this is part of our financial strategy to deal with the loss of property tax dollars. In 2016, we lost $11 million in property tax dollars that we collected back in 2009. And so one of the things we had to address was our public trash contract. We still have 10 more years, 10 plus years to go on our trash contract, that when you don't have the revenue coming in on the property tax side, you have to have something to be able to pay for that contract. And so the fee, we'd asked for a $13 fee per household. Council approved 10 1/4 that was effective last year, middle of last year. Our first full month of collection was about October, when we had the first month where everybody was in the cycle and the majority of people paid. And then this year it'll go up a quarter, and we've got 2 more increases in the coming years, but I was just wanting to focus on 16 and 17. So it'll go up a quarter July 1st of this year, that will help us continue to build against that overall payment that we have to put out each year for our trash collection, residential trash collection in the city of Terre Haute. And then a sewer rate increase. We talked about stormwater fee also. And you know that the council did not want to go down the road of a stormwater increase, so we don't have any funding for stormwater projects other than through our sanitary district and our sewer rate. So we had asked for a 33% increase based on what our fund law associates, our financial consultants, felt was we needed. And the council decided to approve a 21% increase. And so that comes in 2 pieces. One, that people had their first payment was due in January of this year. So we had a 16% increase that went into effect in December of last year. And then the second phase will go into effect in January of next year of a 5% increase. And then that's the last increase that we have targeted to be, that's been approved, that will be targeted to be implemented. Where we're at with our sewer rate increases, I've been crunching some numbers recently. It's always fun for me. I'm a data-driven person. I want to know how we compare to other places. And I'm not sharing some of that data today because we're not done with the analysis, but we'll be doing a presentation to the council here real soon, and we're going to roll that out to the public. It is amazing what people are paying for wells and what their average sewer rate is now in the state of Indiana. Ours is about up to $48 a month is what our average bill is now, which is in between 5 and 6 units. It's about 5.5 units a month. And so our average bill is still considerably lower than most other communities in Indiana. So happy to be able to hold the line there, but as we move forward with the next 4 phases of our long-term control plan, we're going to have to address the future costs down the road. So nothing on the horizon here, but as we do our new rate study this year, it'll tell us kind of what we're going to need for the rest of our long-term control plan. This is something that I found very interesting. I know you can't read it. I'll talk about just a few key points of this. The spending per capita, that really tells you what you spend as a government entity versus your population. So this comes from Gateway. So the first thing I wanted to point out is in 2016, East Chicago, Indiana, spends the most per capita for a Class 2 city. These are all the Class 2 cities listed over here. At $18,652.30 is what they spent last year per their capita. We spent $10,297. It's the 8th lowest out of the 24 Class 2 cities in Indiana. So we're spending the 8th lowest amount of the rest of those 24 cities in Indiana. Lawrence is the lowest. You know, they're a city within Indianapolis proper, and so they don't have a lot of the same services that many of the rest of us do, but they're the lowest spending per capita in the state. And so just to give you a guide, because I'm told all the time that the city's still spending too much money. You know, the budget's too big. It's simply not true. We've been cutting the budget, and this is now a great reflection of how it's affecting the way things look. So anybody who wants to look at this data, it's very interesting. You know, Gateway, Indiana, and bring it up. This is an easy one to find. They have it broken out and spending per capita. But one other thing I thought I should just mention, you can't see it very well down there, but in the gold, Vigo County government spends $10,734 or $735, rounded on up, per capita last year in 2016. So they're spending about $500 more per person to deliver the government services in Vigo County because we are in the city of Terre Haute. And this is a great apples to apples comparison. So I just thought you might find this very interesting because this is the kind of data you really need to look to see if you're getting the value for your property tax dollars primarily. Spent by the city of Terre Haute. So I'm feeling really good about this as we continue to position ourselves as we have pretty much the lowest debt of any city of these 24, other than the wastewater treatment plant. Outside of that, we're one of the lowest debts ratios for any community. We're going to continue to stay out of debt as much as we possibly can, but this number will continue to slowly move in a positive direction for us. 311. Always want to emphasize this because we have developed our business, our delivery of city services around the 311. So every year this number goes up. Last year was 10,000, I don't remember the exact figure, but we're up a little over 1,000 total requests. And what that means is, you know, we might get 20 calls on something, but this would be tracked as one entry into the system to create a ticket for a problem. And it's always interesting to look at the top 5. It varies a little bit from year to year, but these are the kind of things that we deal with on a daily basis. And so large item pickup is at the top of the list. Those are things where, you know, couches, TVs, mattresses. You would not believe how many mattresses we pick up in the city of Terre Haute every day, probably about 20 a day. Excessive weeds and grass is always a serious problem for us, as it is for most communities. And then litter, limbs, stray animals, tree or sidewalk evaluations. So every day we get numerous calls into 311, and we encourage you to use that tool so that we can get a ticket created for this. And once the ticket's created, then there's a set time frame for us to be able to respond to that ticket. If we don't know about it, then we can't fix it. We're complaint driven. You know, we don't have time to go driving around looking for things. We ask the public to share these concerns with us. So when the ticket's created, we can get the ticket closed, we get the problem resolved. So every year, the number of requests continues to go up as more and more people learn about 311. But I couldn't be any more excited about the data that I get back out of this. You know, I crunch the numbers and look at where our peaks and valleys are throughout the year, and in order to be able to put resources up against this, find out where we need from a budgetary perspective to put additional emphasis for public services was really good to assist us with the large item pickup once a week. Where we not only get them picking up things on a regular basis, but one day of the week they provide a truck to us and our prison crew to go out and close out the majority of those tickets. We usually have about 80 tickets on Wednesday or Thursday that we go out and close that came in the previous few days. And so very responsive and very proactive in a way that people feel like their voice is being heard and problems are being resolved. 2016 projects that we completed. The wastewater treatment plant was completed last year. Finally, all the final touches were done. So that was a $135 million project in 2 phases. The first one was about $10 million, the second was about $125 million. You know, that's why the sewer bills went up. That's one of the main reasons. We had to do this. And so right now we have one of the most state-of-the-art plants in the state of Indiana. There are others that are going to be coming on board very soon with their major upgrades. Luckily, ours is behind us. It is a very well operating plant, state of the art. We are eliminating the smell. We have the water that we put back into the river now is so much cleaner than it was in the past. And then we also have a 40% capacity increase, industrial capacity with our wastewater treatment plant. So, as I've mentioned many times in the past, of why we're doing that, it helps us to sell the community from an economic development perspective, because now they don't have to do pre-treatment. They can send their waste to our plant as is. We can treat that for them at a minimal cost and pass it on back into the river as clean water. So that one is behind us, and I'm just glad that I can put it on the list for the final time, because that was a monster. That was a huge project. The plant was opened up in 1961 and really hadn't had anything significant done to it until the last couple of years. Completed phase one of the highway treatment facility. On the property that we own down by the river, behind the IP property, there's so much discussion these days regarding the jail location. We did one half of our highway treatment facility. And what that is the stormwater that can't make it into the system, instead of putting it directly back into the river until the system catches up, we capture it in this highway treatment facility and basically spins it around, kind of like a tornado, if you will. And then it's treated with the UV treatment at the end to clean it so it can be returned to the river. So we do some pre-treatment of that. We have a second phase that we'll be beginning this year on that, but that project is completed now and online, available to us to be able to use. So that was another $9 million project on top of the $135 million. We also completed the flow control structure at Idaho Street, which basically we took two pipes that used to go directly to the river and tied them together, and we have a structure there that captures all the solids. So you're only putting dirty water back into the river at this point, versus all the other debris that's part of our combined sewer overflow system. So that was another $4 million project that was completed last year. That's a big part of our long-term control plan. Hard Avenue. I couldn't be any more excited about this. I mean, my entire life I lived here. I've heard about the trains in 19th and Margaret. This is a project that should have been done 50 years ago. Wasn't for whatever reason. Cam kicked down the road for many, many years, but we finally were able to put all the financing together and get that project started. So we're talking about Canal Road or 14th Street, all the way to 25th Street, with an overpass at 19th and Margaret. It's a $15 million project. It's fully funded. We sent our match check to the state back in February, and right now, utility relocation work is beginning. The goal here is to get this project completed. So we started at 16, but it won't be completed till 18. I'll talk to you a little bit more about that in a few minutes. But we finally are in a position where we're going to be able to deal with that problem. We expect about 10 to 12,000 cars a day to shift back from Davis and from Holman and Washington back down to Margaret when this opens. And then that'll be the place you'll be able to get across the railroad tracks in Terre Haute. So couldn't be any more excited about getting that all lined up here for construction in 17. And the redevelopment funds were spent at 13th and 14th in the Holman Street area. Every year we do a section of town that's the more distressed areas. We have been focused on North 25th Street, east of 25th Street, and north of 4th Avenue for the last really about 10 years. Now we moved into the south end, into that area north of Holman and east of 13th Street. So we'll continue to make investments in those areas with our redevelopment funds and community development block grant funding. Talk about the police department here. It's kind of a busy screen, but I want to just highlight a couple things. Once again, public safety is the most important thing we do. From the mayor's perspective, every single day I worry and deal with these situations. Last Friday was quite a day here, as you all know, that situation we had at Terre Haute North. And just watching the public safety agencies work together and knowing that we're properly trained and dealing with issues in our community makes me proud. And it was considering that was a bad day, it's a very good thing to watch our law enforcement, fire department, and others engaged. The things I want to point out on this is under burglary, theft, and auto theft, right up here at the top. We had a slight increase in reporting. It's like about 20 more crimes, reports of crimes, 16 over 15. And under arrest, we had a slight decrease. So we got about 7 less arrests in that category. That's our biggest area. That's our petty crimes, property crimes, those type of things. So I guess it held its own is what I would say for 15 compared to 16. And then under our more unique crimes that we experienced, homicides, robberies, aggravated assaults, and rapes, we had a decrease in crimes from 151 to 137 of those. And our arrests, we were up one more arrest than we were the previous year. So, the key to these things and what's happened, especially in most of our homicides, the arrests are usually made within 24 hours of the majority of our homicides. So, our officers, the way they're structured and the way they react and respond to these kinds of incidents allow us to find the perpetrators very quickly and get them on the street and get them where they need to be behind bars. And so when you look at our small crime side of things, with a slight increase there, I'm not concerned about that. It's trending in a certain way, but we've had decrease the last several years, and we still have the lowest crime we've had in 23 years in the city of Terre Haute. It's just that situation where, we've got a bit of an increase. Now, one of the things when people talk about jail, once again, maybe we don't need as big a jail and those kind of conversations, which is not for me particularly have by myself. But when we get people arrested and put them in jail, we're not have to make more crimes. That's the key. If they don't have anywhere to go, if we have to let them out of jail because there's no room for them, then they're not just going to go home and behave. They don't do that. That's not the nature of the beast. And so, from our perspective, as the Terre Haute Police Department, we want to be able to have people securely put away until their day in court comes, and then whether they end up in prison or not, that's up to that system. But we have got to continue to deal with this. When you look at our statistics overall, we have 46,000, almost 46.1 calls for service, and taken 11,000 reports, 2,300 traffic citations, almost 3,000 total arrests. Our police department is extremely busy, and that's another thing that comes up periodically too about staffing. What do we need, what don't we need? And what we try to do is add officers. When we lose about 4 or 5, we try to add a few back in because we've got to keep the mix of about right where we're at with the number of police officers we have to deal with the amount of crime that we have in the city. So I'm very proud of activity of the Terre Haute Police Department. Once again, for about the 5th straight year, we've had very, very good numbers. Fire department, 10,000 total responses last year, 7,300 EMS responses out of that 10,000, and that's national trends. It's about 80-20. Most fire calls are EMS related these days. But we had 433 fire calls, of which of those 153 actual fires had to be investigated. And so some of the changes that we've made in the way we deal with our inspection division is kind of coming on board now. We've implemented those at the end of last year. But our goal is to make sure that we still have a 3-minute response time to all the citizens of our community. So we are staffed that way. We top of the line equipment. We put in a 20-year plan to make sure that we continue to replace our equipment on those regular schedules as it needs to be replaced. We've got that fully funded and we continue to do that. But I just don't think a lot of people realize the volume of service and the amount of activity that our Terre Haute Fire Department has. And so we were able to hire 13 new firefighters through a safety grant this past fall. And actually our overtime from 2015 to 2016 went down about $800,000. And it's only because, annually, because of us having the right staffing. We have a minimum staffing we have to have on our equipment to be able to respond to these fires and these EMS calls. And so tapping these safer grants has been very important to us because we've got about 30 firefighters that are due for retirement here in the next 2 to 3 years. And so we know we're going to continue to have turnover there. And so that's been a real godsend for us to be able to hire additional staff and be able to keep our overtime down. So feds paid bills and we saved $800,000 from 15, 16. I think we'll probably save another $200,000 or $300,000 off of that again this year in 17. And then when we talk about just our inspection division more specifically for a second, they're going out and looking at inspecting fire scenes. But we recently had the city council adopt a new fee for us. And so now Terre Haute is like most other communities in the state of Indiana that has a fee for inspections. And it's kind of the nature of the beast. There was some pushback from people saying, oh, another user fee. Well, it's just been a luxury here in our community not having a lot of user fees. But we now have a fee that we're able to go out. Our goal is to try to help these businesses specifically to make sure they have a good environment for their people, their patrons to come in and do business. We know we've got a few buildings we've had to shut down ourselves because business businesses are operating and they block all the exits. They don't have any fire extinguishers. They have no exit signs. And then they kind of push back on us. It's like, well, we can't afford to do those things. Well, you really can't afford not to do those things. And so our goal is to have our inspections people to be in a very positive, proactive mode, to go out and make these inspections and work with these business owners to get these things resolved. You know, it's not to be punitive. It's not to just charge them something. We got to recover our costs, but we want our locations to be safe for people to shop and do whatever they're doing. And so this is another area that's really seen some growth, and we reorganized ourselves. We're able to save some money there. We're able to have the fees that's going to cover a lot of the costs that's related to this. So I just want to spend a moment on that. All right, so that's all I'm going to say about 16. 16 was a good year for us as a city. 17 is going to be even better. So when we think about a couple of different things from the perspective of financials as we move into 17, once again, a stable financial environment anticipated. Now, some will say, well, and I'll talk about a couple of things here in a minute, but the key is having a balanced budget for the general fund. That's our biggest problem area. And so once again, we anticipate attacking this without doing anything else at this point. We will reduce that deficit again at the end of this year. So we have a balanced budget for the general fund and overall, and our goal is to reduce that by a minimum of $750,000. Now, we've tightened it up so much now, there isn't as much room to play, but we'll have a full year of trash revenues, and we're continuing to look at other ways to utilize some other funds to offset some costs and be able to reduce some other expenses, and I'll talk about those too. But our goal will be to reduce that again. My guess is we'll probably get closer to $1 million without doing anything else except normal operations here. So we'll go from that 8.1 million down to hopefully around 7.1 million as a deficit at the end of this year in the general fund if we don't do any other things that I'm going to suggest a little later on. So I want to talk about the TAW and internal borrowing for a minute, because that's another thing that really gets people confused and think somehow that there's something different or unique going on. We are still in a position where we don't have a lot of reserves, and so the first 6 months of the year are especially difficult for us. We don't get our first property tax disbursement for the new year, so in this case of 17, until we'll get an early disbursement of some amount in late May, and then we'll get the rest of that disbursement in late June. And so we kind of have to float ourselves for the first 6 months from a cash pool perspective to continue to do operations. And so two things that we have done. We've had a TAW 5 out of the last 6 years. We have one for this year again, because that helps us kind of take some of the valleys out of our revenue months where we're down. We get the majority of our income from the general fund. We get 80% of all the money we take in for the whole year between June 15th and December 31st. So for the first 5.5 months, we get very, very little to operate with. And so we have the TAW that helps us work through that. It's a tax anticipation one. So some people think that we're like going out to the bank and just borrowing money and then we have to figure out a way to pay it back. That's not it at all. We're taking an advance on our money that comes in December. This is a very common practice. Lots of school corporations do it, a variety of other townships and cities and towns, counties, airports, government entities have the ability to borrow against your future proceeds, and then your cost is your interest. And so we're going to continue to do this, but we want to reduce it every year that we possibly can until we eliminate the need for a TAW. When it comes to internal borrowing, we chose to continue to borrow from the Department of Redevelopment, cash that's on hand in our TIF districts. In the past, we didn't have to have a loan document in place. The law changed because the legislature wants more control over locals about how that money is accessed or not. There's been some misuse of those funds across the state, nothing in Terre Haute. And so they wanted to put some more controls in place. So we have to go to the city council and the Department of Redevelopment and say, for that money to sit in the pool, and for us to be able to access it, we have to have a borrowing document in place or a loan document. So we did that. Thanks to the support of the City Council and the Department of Redevelopment, we did it. And so it's a little less than what we really used last year. It'll be a little tighter for us, but it's okay. You know, it's all about tightening that up. but we need the flexibility to continue to do, pay our bills and do the things that we need to do, especially those first 6 months, and then there's kind of another little bit of a pocket of time in September, early October, where we also face a little bit of a cash flow crunch. But each year now, 14 was our worst year, 15 got a little bit better, 16 was better, 17 will be better yet. The key will be for us is to be able to use these internal funds so that we can make sure that we manage and continue to move forward. Possible revenue enhancements, we're not looking at anything from the city of Terre Haute's perspective per se, but there's two things I just want to mention here that are still law. The public safety local option income tax that the county government is considering for the jail fund. They have to have a revenue source, so they're going to have to do something to be able to pay for this jail. As part of that, the city of Terre Haute will benefit from some portion of that, about 0.25%, depends on what they decide to do. And that will help us to deal with some of our property tax losses over the years. We're slowly approaching $100 million of less revenue since 2009, just really from the general fund. Or at the end of for first quarter or first half of next year, we'll reach that $100 million mark of money that we were approved by the state to collect, but we can't collect because of the property tax cap. We need another source of regular revenue, not to increase our budget, but to be able to submit to our budget to cover some of those losses from the past. So we balance the budget now. Now we need to deal with that deficit reduction. So any portion of the public safety law would get us there pretty quickly. We'd be able to accelerate that deficit elimination and begin to put money back so we wouldn't have to do as much borrowing, especially for the first 6 months of the year. The casino thing I still mention on there because I don't believe it's dead. It is for this session, obviously. But the state is going to have to do something with regards to casinos. It's an issue. I think you'll probably see a summer study committee that will deal with that this coming year. And then next year we'll see what approach the variety of casinos might take to do something in Terre Haute. If that would happen, that would be a very positive thing from a financial perspective for the city of Terre Haute and other government entities here. So either one of those things would solve our problem, if you will. If we were able to get both of them, it would put us in a great position to invest in ourselves. Not to grow the budget, but to be able to put some money back into our community that will help us deal with some other issues that we face. 2017 projects, long-term control plan phase 2. So we have 5 phases of our long-term control plan. We completed phase 1. I was talking about the high-rate treatment facility and the portable control structure, and the wastewater treatment plant portions of all that was finished. Well, this year we have to move into phase 2. So there are several components to phase 2. One is the main lift design and construction. So right now the design work is underway to replace our main lift station, which sits down there off of Prairie Road, and it basically pulls all the waste through the system into the wastewater treatment plant. That's a $20 million item in itself. Obviously that's next on the list to be done, so the design is underway and the construction will begin later this fall. So we're going to have to go deal with a $43 million bond issue to deal with phase 2 of our long-term control plan. Next piece is that second phase of the high-rate treatment facility I told you about earlier. It'll be the second half of that expansion of that particular building that does that high-rate treatment and puts the UV treatment to the water before it's returned. So that's another piece of this that we are mandated to be able to have to be in compliance with to do. The third piece is the wastewater treatment plant phosphorus removal. The EPA has come in and said all wastewater treatment plants have to be they have to put a phosphorus removal plan into their system so that is not returned to the river. So this is a whole new thing. And you're talking about a couple $1 million worth of work here just to be able to deal with that. Who knows what's next? But this is the point is it's a continuing process for us to stay in compliance with the EPA to make sure that we're doing everything that we need to do here locally to deal with these issues. So this is our next thing. Once these 3 are completed, then we'll move into phase 3, and then phase 4, and phase 5, and all those need to be completed in the next 12 years. Walmart and tip construction, talking about Margaret Avenue specifically. a couple of weeks ago, we closed Margaret Avenue on the east side, basically from Clyburn Rural back to the west, about 3/4 of a mile for another section of Margaret Avenue. That is funded through the TIF district out there, the Walmart TIF. So our goal is to get this work completed and this opened back up by November. So construction started 1st of April basically, and through then November, we will be working on this section of Margaret Avenue and then getting that open before the actual construction of Margaret Avenue begins. As I mentioned earlier, the utility relocation is underway. We've been down there with some pipe everywhere, Duke Energy and American Water, a variety of utilities will be working there over the next few months to get their utilities moved back out of the way so the actual road construction will start. Next week, we're having the groundbreaking for this project. Once again, I couldn't be any happier and more excited that we've been able to piece together the $15 million required to do this and have it fully funded and moving forward with this project. It's going to be huge. And so it's going to be a little bit of an inconvenience on Margaret Avenue. So once again, our goal is to get that east end opened up before we close Margaret Avenue and 19th Street. And because that will be closed until we open it up in November or October, November of 18. So the overpass project, once that closes this November or so, it'll be closed for a good year while construction is underway on that overpass. So October 18th. Three other things I want to talk about when it comes to projects. First Street Boulevard. ISU kicked off their part of the project last week. They're doing some work up around the new feed track there on North First Street. We will be beginning our project later this spring or early summer. We've not put out the bid yet, but we're working on that right now. So we're going to be turning First Street into a boulevard, adding left turn lanes and some low maintenance landscaping to improve that stretch through there where the old railroad tracks used to be. So project's about a year behind, primarily because of the railroad. We had to fight with them for almost 2 years. They thought they owned it, or they said they owned it, and they didn't. We knew we didn't, but we finally worked through that from a legal perspective. And this year will be the year that we actually do the project to improve it. So that will be basically from Spruce Street on the north end down to Barrington to south of, or right next to the softball field there on First Street. 7th Street, right out here, worst section of street we have in the city right now. It's because of the railroad tracks. It used to serve Sullivan back when the interurban was running in Terre Haute. And so we have to dig that out like we did on Wabash a few years ago. We have to cut out the center of the road, rebuild it, and then resurface everything. And so we'll be doing a section from Poplar right out here down to Washington Street that will kick off later this spring, early summer also. That will be a very intrusive and intensive thing, just like it was out on East Wabash. You remember the last few years we had to do that. It's very inconvenient. 7th Street will be closed during that time, but it's much needed. It's the worst section of the street that we have in the city, so it needs to be addressed. And then the third piece that we've not set the time frame on this quite yet. We want to do it this year, but we're still dealing with the railroad first and home. So there's some federal railroad issues, CSX and Indiana Railroad. Both laid claim to that track down there, and so we're working on getting some cooperation from them so we can finalize the design on the crossing itself. The intersection is designed, but we're still trying to make sure we don't have to spend too much money. If you follow all the federal guidelines, you have to spend $1 million just to get over the railroad tracks. Well, that's way too much. So we're working on with them to bring that down to a more reasonable and acceptable amount of spending of local dollars to do this intersection improvement. So we're going to just kind of have to keep informed on that one, whether we'll be able to get that completed this year or not. It may roll over to the spring of next year, but we will see. Housing development. It's an unprecedented time in the city, downtown specifically area, when we're talking about housing projects. And I had mentioned this when I talked to the chamber, and so I brought this slide today, because it's totally amazing. When I talk to other mayors and other communities, they're like, man, how can there be that many different projects going on in Terre Haute? They're just surprised at that. But Highland Quarters is over here on Cherry Street. They got their 4 stories up. Their goal is to be open for the next school year this fall, but they got 224 beds in there. The lofts right back over here on 7th Street, market rate luxury apartments that the guys from the Ohio building are doing. Tremendous asset to our downtown area with some very, very, very high-level apartments that will be market rates. The riverfront lofts, just on Monday we had wasn't really a groundbreaking, but we busted up some blocks. This project is huge, a $23 million project, had 166 market rate apartments, loft-style apartments, right on the Wabash River. It's going to be a huge thing, not only for downtown, but from a riverscape perspective. I'll talk about that a little bit, but it's actually going to put people living on the Wabash River in the downtown proper area, and so it's going to be a huge catalyst to further development along the Wabash. Annex 41, they started demolition of the old Boys and Girls Club property. Department of Redevelopment is going to help with a little bit of some sidewalk work and some utility relocation related to that project. And so construction will begin here this summer on that, and their goal is to be open for next fall, a year from this fall. ISU's market opportunity. And then Main Street Student Living was the most recent that was announced up on the old school site there across from the cemetery on North 3rd Street up there at Union Hospital. That is going to be a very large, and they call it student living. Their goal is to be able to get some medical professionals and others in there. But there's going to be 448 beds in that particular housing project. So it's twice as big as what I think originally they had planned to do. So even with all these other projects that are going on in our community, these private developers feel like they can still make money in Terre Haute to make this work. So I think we're kind of going through a trend, is what I would say, where a lot of folks are looking to not own homes, but actually rent. So obviously you have a mix of students here that need housing, but you also have some professionals and some market rate opportunities for people to live in the downtown area. So to have this many different projects, total cost probably approaching $150 million between all of them, is really an amazing kind of thing that's going on in our community. And then down at 29th and Home, 23 single family houses going in down there. And I throw that in there only because we continue to have some development in the city with regard to single family homes. We've got some interest from some other folks now. They're seeing an opportunity to our housing stock is old. We continue to tear some things down, but we have to replace it with something new. So just this slide alone tells you things that really in the downtown area is unprecedented. We've never had that much apartment type activity at one time, but we're still hearing positive things from others that are interested in coming to the Terre Haute market outside of these that are already underway. So very excited about that. Key initiatives for 2017. So from a legislative perspective, there's three things I'm going to talk about. Food and beverage tax is still alive in the budget, and I'll get more specific at that when I give you a home and center update here in a minute. But the key to this is, and immediately you hear people push back, we don't want to pay a food and beverage tax. Well, the key to this for us is the money would just go to the CIB. So it would only go to the entity that will oversee the home and center project and any other project like that in the future, because there will be others down the road. We need some regular revenue coming in to be able to use for operations, to be able to put back for future capital things, repairs, and so this would be a huge component to part of the funding gap that we still have. Right? So the funding gap continues to shrink, and making significant progress on that, but we need this piece because this is just, without this, you don't have any local money, then other local money that can go in to operate on an annual basis. Road funding. It appears that some people are shifting, it sounds in the State House, they're shifting back towards more of a House plan, which I'm much more, I prefer the House plan than the Senate plan myself. I don't know what's going to happen, but we need more road funding. It's clear that our amount of money that comes in every year for road funding in Terre Haute hasn't changed much in my 10 years. It's about the same as it was back in 2008 is what we get today. And so costs go up every year, things get older and become more deteriorated. We need road funding. So the Senate version would have hurt the city of Terre Haute, and we would have got a lot less money. You'd have to apply for a grant to get it versus just getting it through the normal revenue stream. The House version is much more complementary to local government. So I'm happy to hear that it's kind of shifting that way, but we'll have to see what the conference committee ends up with. But I'm watching this one very closely because we need additional road funding money just as much as the state is. You know, the majority of roads in Indiana are owned and maintained by cities and counties, not the state. They only own about 10% of the roads, and the rest of it is owned by local government. So we need road funding dollars, and we'll know next week what that bottom line will look like. And then the business personal property tax reduction, I just bring this up here only because it won't go away. And if you're a business owner, you're paying business personal property tax, you think, yeah, let's eliminate that. But in our case, as the city of Terre Haute, we lose another $5 million a year in revenue. So we go from $11 million a year in losses to about $16 million a year in losses out of what we used to collect, about 22. So it's nearly catastrophic if they decide to implement this at one time and totally eliminate the business personal property tax. So I'm watching this closely. It's not alive in this session. The Indiana Chamber, the Indiana Farm Bureau, Indiana Manufacturers Association are all still pushing this really hard. The governor has not adopted one of his 5 planks for this year, but this is not going away, and it's going to be a real issue for not only us, it'll be for the county government, and a significant hit to them. It still really concerns me that there is no discussion about any alternative revenue to make up for any of that loss that would be attached to that. Federal budget. You know, a lot of people heard about Trump submitted a budget that would have some bearing on municipalities such as us. Really, the only effect that I'm concerned about, I'm not concerned about it, we would just have to deal with it, would be community development block grant funds. You know, we get well over $1 million a year from the federal government to do projects like M 13th and 14th and Holman or up on North 25th that I talked about earlier. If that goes away, we'll have to use local funds to do sidewalks and streets and infrastructure. And so that just means it'll take long. It's going to be a very slow, methodical process if you take over $1 million a year out of that mix. And then grant opportunities. You know, when we talk about the Fire Safer grant, we talk about some of the police grants that we get to pay for overtime and a variety of other things. And I'm not sure how that's all going to shake out. So in President Trump's original budget, there's some things that would have an impact on Terre Haute city government. There's other impacts, you know, in other areas, but those are things that I'm just watching very closely. We need to see, because if we lose those revenue opportunities that we've had for many, many years, we will have to make up for that somehow with local dollars. Challenges to kind of go along with that. Assessed values. We continue to be in a situation where our assessed values are just not accurate in the county. They don't reflect what the true value of property should be, especially on the commercial side. There's some efforts underway, and I'll talk about Terre Haute with Keith in a few minutes, but we have just got to make sure that properties are assessed based on the market. That's it. Nobody should pay one thing more in taxes than what they should have to pay, and their property should be valued based on what the market will draw. And it's simply not the case here. So we've got some really serious issues with assessed values. I've talked about this the last couple of years, and so I'm hopeful that maybe in 2017 we'll begin to see some more transparent discussion about how do we fix this? How do we make sure that Vigo County is like any other county in the state of Indiana where it's reflected, their assessed values reflect market value and not just some other arithmetic problem. Workforce development. We continue to face challenges there. I talked to Sue Elskerman, the president of Ivy Tech, a couple of weeks ago about this. You know, that's our focal area as the new president. And we have got to do a better job as the state of Indiana. Now, the IEDC president was here Monday too for our event over at the Icon building, and she had told me that, you know, we continue to see a decline in population in Indiana, which affects Terre Haute too. You know, our estimates that we get from the Census Bureau stays about the same in Terre Haute, but other areas are losing people, and overall we're losing people. And it's really becoming an issue to recruit businesses to come here when we can't deliver the workforce that they need. And so, you know, that's a bigger challenge than just the mayor, the city of Terre Haute, the city council, or the county government, or the commissioners. But we've got to continue to find ways to make ourselves different than other states, and especially the Midwest. You know, the schools are doing what they need to do from a perspective of that first step. We have got to just take it to a whole nother level, especially when they get out of high school, to prepare them to go into the workplace. And we've got employers telling us that they can't fill jobs. You know, up to Florida right now, not that that's a high-tech thing, but they need 200 people right now. They need 200 bodies. That's what they want. And they're having trouble finding those people. And what we don't want to do is lose that business to some other place that can find those people. So they're doing some very creative things with the Peter County School Corporation, and they're trying to work on some things here as graduation comes up to get some people in there to take those jobs. And you know, I know that's just one example, but we hear this across the board with a variety of employers that the pool isn't big enough around here. So our unemployment rate continues to drop here, which is good, but there's still a ton of jobs that are available, and we're not able to fill them because the people with the right skill set are not in place. So that's just a challenge we always need to continue to face as we move forward. And then just local funding when it comes to doing infrastructure and other things. I'll talk about some very specific projects here in a minute. You know, I don't want to raise anybody's fees. Of course, we can't raise taxes, the city can't. But we have got to find a way to make sure that we're covering our bases on delivery of services. Without any question, we've got a balanced budget, we're doing that. But we've got to find a way to find some local dollars that we can use to invest in ourselves. We're not going to move forward if we don't make those major investments. And there's a variety of things that I'm talking about in that area. We've got to spend a little bit of money to be able to create the environment here for the community to make a little bit of money through increased property values, through more people working, paying local taxes, whatever that might be. So one of the challenges we have is, you know, nobody wants to pay anything more, okay, but we have to find a way to then generate some funds ourselves through public-private partnerships and other things that will allow us to turn around and invest in ourselves and will help the bigger picture. And that's a challenge in any community. You know, you hear about investments in some of the communities, and a lot of times it comes because of they're taking advantage of assets maybe they have, leveraging those assets. And so we're going to be really creative about how we move forward as the city of Terre Haute. So let's talk about some specific things. Jail and funding, just briefly. Not that that's our issue to solve here today, but all along my strategy has been to work with the county to put the jail in the city. We wanted to be in the city of Terre Haute. We don't want to have to drive people and didn't want to have to drive them all the way down to the industrial park. How they pay for that, where it goes, that's completely their decision. As you all know, there's a lot of public debate going on about that, and there's no reason for me personally to be drug into that because that's their responsibility to do that, and they know that, and they're taking that bull by the horns. A lot more discussion will ensue, but as long as the jail is in the city limits, I'm fine with it. The Terre Police Department's fine with that. It just has to be accessible to us. You know, about 60% of the people who go to jail are arrested by the Terre Police Department. So we are the biggest contributor to delivery of inmates. The funding side of it kind of goes back to what I talked about earlier. If there is a public safety law that is adopted, and if it's above 0.25%, there will be some portion of that will go to help us. So some of the rumors that float around out there, which is not a good thing. It's so much misinformation. But our budget is not going to go up if we get public safety money. Our budget, our police and fire department budgets will stay the same. It just means I'll be able to plug those dollars in there and free up those property tax dollars to put in parks and some other areas that I'll talk about in a minute. We have to be able to turn around and invest in ourselves. So our public safety budget wouldn't go up. We would just replace those property tax dollars with new funds. And so it's kind of unfortunate because I hear a lot of things. There's some people that don't want the city to benefit from any potential tax and things like that. And, you know, we're all on the same team. We're all in the same position, have to deal with this. Same thing with the school corporation. We need to deal with new high schools or refurbished high schools. We all have to do our part in these big projects and pay the way. Our wastewater treatment plant, our sewer bills having to go up. Now the key is to make sure we manage that as we move forward so we don't have to do the radical things in the future. This jail is going to require funding. And so the sooner they get that figured out, the better. And all I want is to just be on board with this to say that one, it's their decision where they put it. They may have to come to the city council for a rezoning if they stick with that site. So that'll be something the city will get involved with. But otherwise, we need it in the city, and it would be good if we had some public safety, local option income tax funding to help us kind of fill our gap. Police station. Police station has not gone anywhere. The project itself, where we're at right now is a couple of things that are going on. One is we are getting our audit done by State Board of Accounts. We're trying to encourage them to also do the 16 audit. They're way far behind. We love to get those audits completed. That's always part of the financing package, and so we love to be able to show the positive progress that we made. And so both of those things are going on. We've got Unbought Associates who is doing our update of our financial plan and looking at some longer-term things that will help us tremendously. And then we've got ICEL, our bond council, working on a variety of looking at the different options available to us to fund the police station. So that building has to be replaced, no question about that. The building does not need to be in the new jail or part of the new jail. It's not going to save us any money to do that. We need our own standalone police station. And we don't need any new funding to do the project. And that's another myth that's floating around out there, that we're going to need a tax increase. And that's not true. There's already existing revenues to the TIF district, and we already have existing dollars to our head, which how do we package this thing to be able to fund this. So over the coming months, we'll be able to finalize and firm up that plan and put a calendar to it. But that building will get built, and that existing building will be torn down. It is not in good shape, and that project is as alive as it can be. We just don't have the specific strategy to roll out yet, or which way, how we want to fund that project. Blight elimination program continues. We're going to tear down 65 houses this year using those blight elimination funds. Red tape city when it comes to this particular use of these funds. It is very frustrating. We talk to Dean up in the Department of Redevelopment. He's ready to, every day he's about ready to walk away from the project because it is so intensive with federal and state government red tape. It's taken 2 years to get some properties under our control to be able to tear them down, but it's worth doing because otherwise we would not have the funds to tear these houses down. As I said, we're going to do about 65 this year total. Some of those are left over from last year, but that's just kind of the way the system works. And then we put another $300,000 in the pot to tear some additional houses down that don't meet the criteria of the blight elimination program. So you're probably going to see about 80 to 85 houses torn down in the city this year. That's the most that we've done in any one year in a very, very long time. But they are not only eyesores that bring assessed property values down and crime scenes. And so we are going to continue to focus on this and work through this until that program runs out of funds. And then another little component of this is we're going to do a board and seal program this year for the first time. We're going to do a pilot program here this spring. We're going to try to expand that over the rest of the summer because some of these houses are salvageable. And so the ones that are, we want to board them and seal them so they don't get any additional deterioration until we can see if they might be another program needs. But we're going to try to eliminate the fact that they are used for criminal activity. So they'll look better, and they'll be much more safer, and hopefully that'll reduce some of the arsons we have also. So I'll tell more about that in the coming weeks. We're doing a health insurance audit right now in the city of Terre Haute. It's kind of our ongoing look at our budget, trying to find ways to tighten things up. We are looking at all of our dependents in our system. That's not been done. I can find no record of that ever being done. And so we're going to put out a 3-year schedule. What we're doing right now is going to make sure that everybody that's on our healthcare system is supposed to be on our healthcare system. So we found a few so far. I got an update earlier in the week, and so we're making some progress there. We have about another 30 days to go through this. And then we'll be looking at a spousal carve-out component next. We have 7 bargaining agreements with our city employees, so we can't just go in and say we're going to eliminate spouses from health care if they have it with their employer. But we're going to work with all of our unions and the rest of our city employees to make sure that we implement this in a way that's fair to everyone and it's across the board and not targeted to any one area. So this is kind of the phase 1 piece, and then the phase 2 just to make sure that we've got everybody on the right insurance plan. We're going through the renewal right now. We just got our renewals back, so I haven't even had a chance to review them. But we're soon finding out what our health care costs are going to be for July 1st and beyond of this year. And then our golf course management RFP, really excited about this too. We're kind of running about a year behind where I wanted to be, but it's mainly because we wanted to work through some legal issues and some preparatory issues before we got into the actual RFP process. So we're looking to see if the company will come in and manage our 2 golf courses. My goal is to make sure that we don't lose several $100,000 a year. In the past, the Parks Department used to take in $1 million more a year than what they take in today. So they were able to make up that $300,000 or $400,000 loss on the golf courses. They were able to absorb that in the parks budget. Well, since the parks budget is $1 million less a year, we can't continue to fund those losses at that rate. So we have got 7 respondees so far who are going to do an RFP. They claim they're going to do an RFP. So we've got 7 national companies. Actually, there's 3 national companies, 2 regional companies, and 2 Indiana companies is the breakdown. And they would like to put in a bid to manage our golf courses. And our goal would be to negotiate a contract with them that would keep us from losing any money. So breaking even is my goal. They can make all the money they want if we're able to do that, but we want to make sure that we're not losing anything. So it'll be a significant change in the way we do things. We can still own the courses, we can still have a lot of control over that, but it would be a company that would come in and manage it at their risk level versus ours. And so we'll know more about this. They have to have the responses in by the end of May, so by the time we get that June time frame, we're going to know a lot about what next year might look like on our golf courses. Downtown Terre Haute Chamber of Commerce. You know, I've had some people come to me concerned about the fact that ETH is kind of folded up, but it's under the Chamber of Commerce now, and still in the transition phase. But this is a good thing. I've been on the board of both of these organizations since I became mayor in 2008, and attend almost every meeting with both of them, know the ins and outs of what's going on. The problem is, it's just been funding for ETH to have a director, a full-time director, to be able to fund that, and one person doing all the work. And so we've gone through a few directors over the last few years, and so the decision was made to just disband ETH, but then let it be reinvented under the Chamber of Commerce, under their umbrella. So this is going to turn out to be a very, very positive thing. The name's not going to go away. The activity and the resources associated with it will increase, and yet we won't have to go out and raise a bunch of money every year to pay a director's salary at this point. And so this is a positive thing. You're not going to see any degradation of services or activities in the downtown area. My guess is you'll see an increase over time. There's all talk already of redoing and bringing back the downtown block party that's going to go away for a year. So it's just exciting to me to hear people kind of pulling up their bootstraps and figuring out a way to make this work. And so I mention it only because with what's going on in downtown, we've got to keep that momentum going. And I think this is going to be a really positive thing when some people think they see it as a negative thing. I just wanted to bring that up today because I really feel very strongly about that. Communications I want to talk about briefly. Once again, there's so much misinformation out there. I've been trying to figure out a way, how do I do, I can come and do these kind of things. I mean, people call me, email me, I'm dealing with stuff like that every day. I provide a lot of information back to people, but it's the masses that I really think about. And so, we had that event last Friday, and Ryan Adams, our PI over the police department, he was sending Twitter messages and things out to people because there was so much false information out there. And it just kind of hit me from a crescendo perspective that we've got to do more to push information back to the public. And so I feel like I need to make a step up from the mayor's perspective too, just kind of as the center of the activity. And so it's good to see and good to hear that there's an effort with our police department, and we have other departments that use some of these social media resources. But I want to do some very specific things from my perspective too. So if people are going to continue to, not have the proper information they need, and then that just propagates itself, that's not good for any of us. And so over the next few months, I'm really going to ramp up. I don't have a Twitter account, as an example, but I'm going to get one. And I'm going to bring some staffing into my department, into the mayor's office, to help me with this kind of thing, from a Facebook perspective, and Twitter, and a variety of other things. We're going to start pushing some information back out to the public. And we've been talking about some of these things for a couple of years. We just have to have the resources to be able to do that. So we've identified the resources, and we're going to really start to push more information out. From road closings to, police-related issues. I mean, all this will be coordinated in a way that we're going to probably put so much information out there you'll wonder where it was all at in the past. But I'm just really concerned about the miscommunication. And so everybody uses social media. I mean, I don't know how many times we heard on Friday that there was a hostage and somebody had somebody in the bathroom in North and all that. And knew for a fact that wasn't true, but kids were saying it, mom and dad believed it, so media heard it, everybody believes it. And it never was true. And that's just one extreme example, I know, but I think that more information that we can push that's coming out from an incredible source such as the city of Terre Haute will calm fears, will provide the proper information you need to, make good decisions. Be conscious of what's going on and not be caught up in a lot of that stuff. I think Facebook's evil. I mean, I read some of the stuff that people write about me and those kind of things on there because that's what they do. But we're going to have to use that tool ourselves because we can't just leave it to one half of people who are unhappy or unknowledgeable about what's going on. And everybody is so consumed with social media that we have no choice but to kind of jump on that bandwagon. So I want to make sure we do it right. I want to make sure we do it regularly. And I want to make sure that the information that's put out there is valuable to people. So we're going to be doing some of that. We'll begin to roll it out and do some media announcements. But I want to make sure that we do it the right way. So my goal is kind of July 1st to really have most of this in place. But I just think that we can do a better job of communicating facts out there versus, no response to misinformation. So that's a very specific key initiative. Quality of life things, riverscape, we're going to talk about. I think we're at a point in time where we can take this to another level. I use the riverscape group as an example. I serve on that board also, but it's time for us to update the plan. And so as the year progresses, we identify a consultant to help us update that 10-year-old plan. A lot of things, positive things have happened, but the next kind of quality of life things are going to happen along the Wabash River. That's really where the focus is going to be. Somewhat groundwork has been laid, but now we need to start thinking big kinds of things, and we're going to have private development. So this icon building and having core redevelopment in our community and remodeling that is just another key indicator that there are partners out there, and we've got to be able to do this in a much broader scope of things than a group of volunteers. So the board continues to work on a regular basis very hard about bringing ideas and things from the city and the county both and to the state. But we really need the 10-year plan needs to be updated beginning this year, and we all need to refocus and re-engage with the goals and tasks and activities that are going to roll out of that. It'll be bigger and better than what we've seen today. Art spaces in terms of the river, I give this specific example because once again, quality of life initiatives revolve around making Terre Haute a place that people want to be. The Turn to the River project itself is kind of that government campus between the Wabash River bridges and then connect north to south to the trail system. This project is being funded to this point. The grants and things, Mary Kramer's done a tremendous job of going out and seeking funds to help get the design component done. We're designing our campus there at City Hall, the parking lot fit into this, and the county, same way with their part of the property. But this will kind of open up that downtown corridor directly to the river. A lot of people can't see the river. They don't know what's there. They're not terrible, been here all their lives. But these are the kinds of things that will set us apart. We weren't funded for the Regional Cities Initiative, but we've been able to do some things on our own, meaning people here in our community, to make these projects reality. So creating a new park between the two river bridges with a major thoroughfare, if you will, pedestrian thoroughfare from downtown directly to the river is going to go towards these same projects that I envision happening connected with Riverscape. So we're fully supportive of what our spaces is doing, and then when it comes time to actually build that out, then we'll be stepping up to the plate to do our portion. Home Center. We talk about quality of life, change of dynamic for a community. This has been going on for about 3 years now. We've made more progress in a much shorter period of time than Indianapolis ever did with their CIP. So some people get frustrated, it moves kind of slow, but a lot of it has to do with the funding, it had to do with creating this CIP board with 7 members to make that up, and then 4 different entities. But design work continues, as we talked earlier. The food and beverage tax is an important piece of this. You know, the county's kind of focused on the jail thing right now, but that funding is still available to the county and the city and everybody else to make this a reality. So our goal still is to secure that $37.5 million from the state of Indiana as this year progresses, and begin some type of construction on this next year. I don't know when yet, that's not been decided, but this thing will happen, and it will happen in a very positive way, and the impact it will have on West Central Indiana will be phenomenal. Managing this and bringing a variety of events to Home Center that isn't happening today is the goal, to make this a multi-use facility with convention space. You know, when Holiday Inn closed up their convention space, we only have 6,000 square feet of rentable in Terre Haute. Now we have much less than that since they closed their facility up. So there is none. We're turning away small conventions all the time. I went down and spoke to a group last Saturday at the Holiday Inn. They have a room big enough for 20 people. So they have about 25 people squeezed in there, and they want to have a regular meeting here, an annual meeting in Terre Haute, and they can't fit in there. And so we need this type of space available to us. So this is going to be a catalyst project. We've got to keep this thing alive and moving forward, and it's happening. It's just behind the scenes. You're not seeing a lot of it in public life right now because there's a variety of other activities going on. But everything is well on that side of things. Terre Haute Parks Plan. The 5-year Parks Plan expires at the end of next year. So we're in the process of working with Purdue University actually to help us do the next 5-year plan. That ties into where we're going with our park system. Deming Park Pool, as you know, we fixed the pool last year. We're fixing the splash pad this spring. We're going to get several more years of use out of that. And we put a committee together to look at what is our long-term solution to replace the Deming Park Pool. So we've got a committee made up of community members, a variety of people who are meeting on a regular basis and looking at things that have happened in other communities, from Greenwood, Vincennes, to other places where they built new pools recently, to even ideas bigger and beyond those things, to figure out how we tie that into our 5-year plan to fund a replacement for the Deming Park Pool. Whether it ends up in Deming Park or not, that's the kind of things that this group is looking at. We'll figure out what it's going to be, what community asset that we need, what the people want, how much is it going to cost, how do we pay for it. And so very excited that Eddie Burns put that committee together and are meeting on a regular basis and coming up with some really good ideas. So there'll be some public sessions then that will follow the initial planning, but it will turn in as part of our 5-year parks plan that's going to be updated beginning later this year. Launch Terre Haute. I get a lot of feedback from other mayors, especially Mayor Scott Adams of Fishers, about our Launch Terre Haute. Shelby Klingerman and the others that are involved with this are doing a tremendous job. If you're not a part of that, you don't really know much about it other than one media may have reported. But we've got something 50+ companies now that are trying to create a company, I guess is the best way to put it, through Launch Terre Haute, trying to plan and turn an idea into some kind of product. Well, between Rosal Ventures and things that are going on at ISU, Terre Haute Innovation Collaborative, and with Launch Terre Haute, we are turning into a hotbed of ideas, and what we have to do is be in a position when these ideas can turn into a product that they decide to do it here in Terre Haute. They don't move somewhere else to do it. And so our goal is to support Launch Terre Haute and other entities like this to keep those thoughts, those ideas, that excitement in Terre Haute, because this is working in other places, and Terre Haute is doing very well as compared to some of these other launch locations. And so, couldn't be any more excited about it. They're in home in Deming, the old Deming Hotel, Deming Market Building now over on Cherry Street, and the success that they're having. So we, as a community, need to promote and help support the things that Launch Terre Haute is doing, because this is going to lead to job creation in Terre Haute. Absolutely will. Can't guarantee they'll all stay here, but our goal is to keep as many as we possibly can. We want that innovation to happen in Terre Haute, Indiana. It doesn't need to go to Fishers or Carmel or somewhere like that to accomplish the same thing. Talk about Terre Haute Eats for a few minutes. You know, the whole purpose, and it comes to spin off of Terre Haute tomorrow, was was to find a way, how do we make sure Terre Haute is competing with all these other places? How do we know that we're doing things the right way? How do we know we're not trying to reinvent the wheel that somebody else may be already doing? And so there's about 140 ideas that came together from Terre Haute Competes, and they picked 5 of them. I'm on the steering committee of that, and we selected 5 to start with. And you're going to start to hear some reports from some of these committees very, very soon. We're starting to have the initial report meetings internally, and then those will become external very soon. A couple of them affect us. One is related to Terre Haute Fire Department staffing and EMS billing, and so I'm feeling really good about the data that was collected there, and can't wait to share that with the public. Talking about the Terre Haute wastewater treatment plan, and how we can use that, leverage that asset as we move forward in the future, keep our rates down, and still take advantage of financial components of that. And then there's an assessed value assessment process, a team that's looking at some things that's related to county assessments. Another group that's looking at the metropolitan planning organization and our road funding that comes to Terre Haute Vigo County. And then the last one is the combined city-county services. That one's going to be a little longer term one. But we're going to look at what ways can we work with the county, us, and they work with us to find some efficiencies and scales to make sure that all of our tax dollars go as far as we possibly can. So, so far so good with Terre Haute Competes. I know a lot of you are waiting to hear the actual, data come out of there. But now we're getting down to the next few weeks for actual ideas and recommendations and specific thoughts and tasks that begin to roll out of it. So, wanted to give you that update. I fully support this and will continue to be play a part of that as a city of Terre Haute. Before we go to questions, I thank you for bearing with me on this. I think what I really believe is we're at a very unique time here in Terre Haute. Our unemployment rates moving in the right direction. You're seeing this private development coming to build housing in our communities. We continue to see retail, even though retail is struggling, because everybody's buying things over the internet. Small retailers, older retailers are not being as competitive, but the big box players are still in the game, and we continue to see a lot of interest from Terre Haute. We're going to see some new things out on 46 specifically this year. We continue to see local efforts from a variety of non-profit groups to further the cause of our community, not sitting back and waiting on the government to do that. We need to make those investments in ourselves. So I talked about earlier, we have to put back in Terre Haute. We can't just pay a minimal amount of tax or a minimal amount of user fee and just say it's okay, it's good enough, because it's not, because we're competing against the world. And in order for Terre Haute to grow and our assessed values to go up, we're going to have to make those investments in ourselves. We're going to invest in our people from a workforce development perspective. We have to invest in our properties and keeping the city clean. We have to continue to invest in public safety and keep our citizens safe. All of those things go to the core and the roots of making Terre Haute a great place to be. I have people, recently I met with a church group. They're called Generation Joshua. It's a bunch of young kids, high school age, college age kids. There was about 40 of them there. And we had about a 2-hour meeting. We just went through a whole bunch of stuff, all the good and bad of Terre Haute. And there wasn't anything that was unpredictable in their meeting. But out of that has come them coming up with some of their own ideas on how we can address some of these issues. Because I kind of put it back on them a little bit. I said, you can't just go do some of these things without having money or resources of some kind. And they just didn't really kind of quite understand that part of it. They want Terre Haute to be a great place. They want to raise their families here. And they're just not sure, is this the place or not? And it was a great conversation, and I'm going to do the follow-up soon, but it's empowering to hear kids, especially, I say kids because I'm getting old now, about wanting Terre Haute to be a good place. They see the progress that we've made over the last 10, 12 years, and they want to be a part of it. They want to take it to a whole other level. And so we've got to continue to engage our youth. There's not enough of that. So I need to find ways myself, but we also all need to find ways to get the younger people involved in this. They have great ideas. Yeah, some of them have to kind of be pulled back a little bit, but only in a way that if you can go solve this problem, you can go crazy with it. They just need to understand kind of how it all works. And so it's exciting to me to see this youth movement and to see people who want to be engaged. And I get letters from kids and others all the time. I had an adult do it the other day saying, how come we don't have a splash pad or quality park like Plainfield does. So I explained to her that they're using their TIF dollars to do that. They lose about $100,000 a year on it. That's what their community is investing into do it. And so once I explained to her, she's like, okay, well, we can do that. I said, yes, we can, but we have to have people who are willing to say, let's make those investments, not let's push back immediately when we talk about having to create some new avenue of revenue or opportunity that people's like, oh, don't want to pay anymore, don't want to do anymore. And I'm not saying that we can raise taxes or anything else. I'm just saying that we have to be really prudent. We have to continue to partner. We have to continue to collaborate. We have to do things that are outside the box in order to make Terre Haute a special place. And so this is really unprecedented time. When you talk about housing development, when you talk about some of the economic development opportunities. We've had a couple of great job announcements recently, 3 in the city, 2 in the county industrial park. There's more to come. Steve Witt is in Japan right now, running that business with a Japanese company, trying to bring them to Terre Haute. And so we all continue to work very hard every single day. And I couldn't be more proud or excited about our community. You hear some negative things, everybody does. But we got to stay focused on positive things and then take care of the negative things as our normal business and not get bogged down in that. So I'm just extremely excited. Even though I don't feel really well here at the end of the day, I couldn't be any happier and feel any better about seeing the activity, the effort, the excitement, and just watching Terre Haute continue to grow. So, appreciate it. I will open it up to 2 questions or another yes. Anybody have anything that I didn't cover or I didn't cover that you'd like to ask? Yes, sir, Clark.
Clark Allen, thank you for all your sharing with us today. Just thinking about where Terre Haute is right now, the direction we're moving in, what's kind of your vision for like 10 years from now, where you kind of hope that we'll be a little bit farther down the road?
Yeah, I think what we really need to do, we're going to have to, some of us, I think the younger people, are going to have to get involved with the Terre Haute Tomorrow visioning process, because that's kind of where we're at. It's time to do that next real 10-year plan. But there's a couple of things. One is we've got to raise the median household income. We've got to get people in a more stable environment. I'm encouraged by the governor's activities as related to drug addiction and all that. That's a serious problem we face in our community. Not all things that the city can fix by itself, but we have to be a partner in that. And so that's encouraging to me. So if we could bring median household income up, get some people off the drugs, continue to deal with the crime side of things. If they have a job, if they have a stable environment, they're less likely to turn to those things. That needs to be our 10-year focus. That will then in turn lead to increased assessed values of properties and homes, people making those investments. It kind of turns and flips that whole thing before we're at today. Our diversification of our economy is great. We just need to keep attacking all those different areas like we are today. So I don't see a big change of philosophy when it comes to that side of it, other than we've got to fix the ills and the weaknesses of our community. It really falls back on rampant drug use and low incomes. Good question. Yes, Don?
2 questions. First one is the most, what we can have based on what it also is,
Specifically
told kids, that's, you can put it off, and the school will be far worse than that. And yet they will be the most expensive of all. We will be able to build a jail. We will be able to build a city police station, stay in the way up there. And we will spend less money on those things than we go on.
Okay. All right, so the question, if you couldn't hear me, was just really talking about big dollar projects. So obviously, you know, we spend money on wastewater, we're looking at police station, we've got the jail, we've got the Bennett School Corporation dealing with 3 high schools. And the point is how much public interaction is throughout that process. So, I would say that you hear those same arguments everywhere as it happens. I understand completely what you're saying. A lot of times people don't pay much attention about it until it really kind of something turns into reality. There's always, here's an idea, and then here's what we're going to go do. Somewhere in between, all your local officials, no matter who they are, mayor, city council, county council, you name them, they all need to be open and thinking about that very argument. Because if you get too far down the path, it's really hard to change, and it looks like you're rigid, you're not listening, whatever. I get that. It's that emotional and that reality check, I guess, that comes. I would continue, all of us need to do that. You continue to go to public meetings. I know you come to public meetings. People need to get engaged in a way that they're not doing today. Because most of them don't care unless it affects their pocketbook. You know, if it's going to affect my wallet, then I care a lot about it. And that's kind of the phase we're going through, especially with the jail, because it is such a big ticket item. Originally, everybody thought it was about half that, and then it kind of ended up being almost twice as much as what was originally said. And so with that comes some criticisms, okay? I think they're hearing that, and they know that. When it comes to the police station, you know, we kind of went through this process about 10 years ago, so it's kind of old news for me that we need 28,000 square feet of office space. That's really what I'm looking for in a secure environment. So there isn't as much drama maybe with that one. The schools, you know, there's going to be a lot of options, whether they're remodeled or added on to, or brand new ones are built. And my guess is, because there'll need to be a referendum attached to that, people are going to have to actually vote on that. That's really, that'll be a campaign in itself, dealing with that. So I would just say, I hear you, and I'm sure other elected officials that are here hear you, and I think as we move forward, we need to learn from the lessons of the past that we need to have some more public comment and input that way, along the way. Let me just see what else we got. I'm going to wrap it up here pretty quick. Anybody got anything else? I know you all want to go, things to do. Let me follow up with you on your last one. Thanks again. Appreciate everybody being here. And all of you keep up the good work that you're doing in our community. God bless. Thank you.